of love and life, stories that entertain and inspire, and the best stories are the ones that happen to be true. Every Friday night, Jack Devnarain is live in conversation with an iconic South African personality who shares the true stories that shape their remarkable lives. Join us for reality radio as real as it gets. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday night, only on 919.
Hey everyone, happy Friday. You're listening to 919. My name is Jack Devnarain and this is Reality Radio. It's as real as it gets every Friday night from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. where we have a guest live in studio and we talk about the amazing stories that shaped their incredible lives. Tonight in studio, a really good friend, journalist, news hound, presenter, producer, and actress as well. It's amazing to have you, Uveka Rangappa.
Actress is a bit of a stretch, but thank you very much. Hi, Jack.
But you can own that. You can own that, right?
I can own it because you taught me how to act just over a year ago. So I'm a newbie.
But you never really completely learn how to act. I think that's a lifelong journey on its own.
Well, look, we spend most of our lives acting in many roles, right?
Yeah, that's true. Also, what was it that you found, that you discovered about yourself when you were in this world of acting?
That I could cry on demand.
Really? That's not easy, I have to say, though.
Yeah,
you have to know that.
You were there. Remember, they were bringing the fake tears. And I said,
Yeah.
no, I don't need it.
Yeah.
I don't need it. I'm okay. It'll come. And then it came.
And then it did.
And then, despite not having given childbirth like naturally,
Yeah.
I knew how to scream like I was. So I learned that. But it was great. And you taught me a lot. So thank you.
I'm so glad because, you can never really teach a person how to act. You can teach them that they have the tools to pay attention to the things that they're experiencing every day, because actors somehow process that differently. They'll feel a moment and record it in an emotional storage somewhere, and they'll be able to replicate it when that situation is it's part of a story that you need to relate.
Well, I've learned all the moments that I can keep in storage that would make me cry.
Yeah.
I've got them in a bank, in a crying bank.
But that's our
in
whole
a tear
life.
Bank. Yeah.
Everything that we have lived up until this point in our life is part of that resource that we need to draw on.
Absolutely. And
But
you only learn that as you get older, right?
Yeah, and you realize how it guides you, teaches you, your past experience.
Yeah.
And that's why we have reality radio, in fact, because I was fascinated by not just the people that we know and love as iconic South Africans. It's also about the stories that brought them to where they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we all have a story.
Exactly.
And many of us have several stories.
Yes.
A story a week.
What about your stories now? That's why you're here. I
Ooh.
wanted to have you on the show so badly and for so many weeks, because it's a story of going from and you were born in Verulam, right?
Yes, we were neighbors.
We were
Tonga,
neighbors.
right? We were just up the road from each other, a few
We
kilometers
were.
away.
I have to say it's amazing the number of people who are really well-known media players now who come from that side.
Yes.
And yet we still maintain a certain surprise when people from that area become media personalities.
Can we high five again to like small town people?
Small town
people.
Love that.
Yeah, who have stories now.
That's
yeah,
right.
I was born in Verulam. And I don't know which part of my story you want. I mean, obviously, all our parents were teachers, right? Tongat and Verulam.
I don't know if there were people who weren't teachers.
Who weren't teachers, yes. Most of them were teachers, and they all ended up living in the same sort of road and the same hill and the same suburb.
Speak the same language.
They all know each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all know each other. I'm a middle child. I'm the middle of three. Can you tell? I'm a middle child.
I don't know. Is there supposed to be a personality that goes with it?
There's a middle child syndrome.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
What is that?
Is you're a rubbish. Yeah. You're basically the black sheep of the family.
Are you?
Yeah.
So everything that the family is doing, you do something else.
You just do the opposite. You make it your duty to do the opposite. You make it your duty to shame your parents and your family.
Okay.
Yeah. Every day.
And everybody knows what to expect when you're around.
To expect the unexpected. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you wear that with pride, right? It's
I wear that with pride because, we are who we are, Jack. We can't deny it. And I've learned to accept myself. Funny enough, as I hurtle towards 50 next year,
Oh, wow.
it's only now that I start to accept, in the past year or two, I start to like myself. I love myself now. Yeah.
Do you love Verulam more now than when you were growing up in it?
I appreciate Verulam more now.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
What is it about Verulam?
It's the simplicity.
Yeah.
It's, we're Hindu, right? So it's sort of when you go home to visit mom and dad, and I pray. I pray to the sun in the morning. I pray at my lamp, and I pray at my lamp twice a day. First thing I do after brushing my teeth and washing and all of that, before I even take a sip of coffee or anything, is to pray. Put my hands together and pray in the direction of the sun. And when you're in Verulam and you're praying, and it's not just like living in Joburg, where when you step out to pray, you're looking at your neighbor's wall. Where's the sun?
Yeah.
And you're in Verulam, and the air is a little fresher, and the sun is right there, and you can step out. You're not praying from behind a gate or whatever it is. You're actually stepping out, and you can pray. It's a simple thing, but I think it encompasses that simplicity and the authenticity.
Yeah.
I think of where we come from, and that you can walk to your neighbor and you don't have to phone and say I'm coming, or send a WhatsApp to say, are you home?
Make
Can
an
I come see
appointment.
You know when your neighbors are home in Verulam.
Or even worse, as we tend to do nowadays, is if I see you somewhere at a function, or now that we've just got this appointment, we'll say, let's do coffee.
Yeah, yeah,
And we never do.
yeah.
Nobody ever does.
We don't. We
Yes.
don't.
So it's coming from those small town places, your word is important.
Yes.
So if I say I'm going to see you, or I'm going to come and connect with you, it's because I want to and I mean it.
Yes, and sometimes they can just ring the doorbell and they're there. I mean, I know I visit my mom and dad, and I'm sleeping, and at 6 a.m, the doorbell goes, and I'm like, who could that be this early in the morning? And then you come out and you're in your PJs, and there's Uncle so-and-so who's just come for tea.
Yes, he just popped in.
And it's okay. It's absolutely okay.
It's okay.
And mom's making him a tin fish sandwich and a cup of tea, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, let me go get a gown, and let me get Uncle so-and-so is here. And that would never happen where we live now.
Yeah, well, when you hear Uncle so-and-so has just arrived, at 7 o'clock in the morning, it's amazing that we don't stop to ask why.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because he can.
He can.
Because it's okay.
He's here now.
Yeah, because that's their life. It's wonderful.
I miss that as well,
Yeah.
yes. You know what I miss, though? One of those things about growing up in Tongaat is as early as you can wake up, you will still find people walking on their way to work, carrying their little bag, going to work the sugarcane fields. The trucks are already going, they're already moving long before you even decide that you're ready for your day. That I miss.
Yeah. You don't get to see it. You don't get to look out your window and
No,
see it.
you
I mean, we
don't.
have people who go to work just as early in Johannesburg, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
wherever
yeah.
we are in South Africa. But you don't get to see it unless you drive out of your complex and your gate and your boom gate and unlock everything that's supposed to, all the million
That's the
change you have.
difference.
That's the difference. Here you just look out of you stand on the driveway, you're enjoying the morning sun after your prayer, and here's somebody who's, and people greet you and they know you, and that kind of, you hardly get that here.
Don't you also remember the smell of the lush vegetation?
Yes.
That you just know this is the greenest vegetation you're going to get. The mango trees, I can still remember.
Yes.
The sound of the sugarcane leaves rustling in the wind can put me to sleep.
Well, that, and then the monkeys that come to get the mangoes off the tree. I mean, being in Tongaat and Verulam as well, the army of monkeys.
Oh, they are a
army
menace.
of monkeys.
They are a menace.
Yeah, and for us, it's exciting. When I take my kids, they're like, the monkeys. It's like,
it's new for them, hey?
it's for them. It's like, I mean, all they see are dogs and cats where we are, right? And birds. Hadi does.
Yeah. At school, did you ever think that you would be keen to be a news person, a news presenter?
Jack, that's a very
Journalist.
interesting story. You like stories, right? You wanted stories. So,
I tell you what we're going to do is, because I love stories so much,
Okay.
I'm going to give it its full run.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a bit of a break
Great.
now, and then we're going to come back to the story of how you found yourself in news.
Okay.
Perfect. It's reality radio on a Friday night. Join us when we come back after the break with Uveka Rangappa and the story of her and the news.
The Feel Good Drive with Nicole De Silva.
Do you know that homes in Nigeria get built with generators? They're not even trying to be fighting with their provider.
Every house there that they had literally had a generator. You could literally hear the generator on the show.
Oh no.
Just running and running and running,
Yeah.
and while they're actually having a conversation.
Monday to Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. only on 919. 919 has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, programming that is not harmful to children and that does not amount to hate speech, or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. If you think we're not living up to that code, you can inform the BCCSA. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa to PO Box 412-365, Craig Hall 2024, or email the BCCSA at napsa.co.za. For more information, visit the bccsa.co.za. We all love a good story. Stories of love and life. Stories that entertain and inspire. And the best stories are the ones that happen to be true. Every Friday night, Jack Devnarain is live in conversation with an iconic South African personality who shares the true stories that shape their remarkable lives. Join us for reality radio as real as it gets. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday night, only on 919.
It's reality radio. We are back with Uveka Rangappa. Uveka, I know I had just dropped that on you the moment you're going to go in for a break, but this I know is a story. So were you always a news person from the time, how far back can you trace that?
You know, I can't trace it far back, but my parents do.
So, okay.
I mean, I was clever.
Right, I'll give you that.
As we said back in the day, she was clever, not intelligent, she was clever child. So, I mean, you know, first in the class, first in the standard.
Yeah.
Up until I decided to be clever and do physics and maths higher grade and all of that in high school, then it all fell apart. But that's okay. That's okay. Then I ended up doing drama, and look where it got me.
Well, whose choice was the maths and physics thing?
Well, you see, that's the thing. You know, if at the risk of maybe offending some people in the community, if you weren't doing an S course back in the 90s, you were seen as maybe not that smart.
Yeah.
And you had to choose maths and you had to do everything on higher grade.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh no, I fell into the same trap, I promise you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I attempted to do computers, which lasted about 2 months, and all I could do was move that turtle, and that was it. And on the screen with the logo turtle, remember that one?
Yeah.
And then I eventually went to drama.
Okay.
And now we see the reason for that, right?
Yeah.
So the expectation was, when I was clever for those few years, was that I would eventually be a doctor, as everybody wants you to be a doctor.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing, a teacher, doctor, or lawyer.
Accountant.
But doctor was the thing that everybody expected me to be. Sorry, folks, to disappoint you. And then I don't know how I got into journalism, because I don't remember doing that application.
Oh, come on.
I wanted to be a clinical psychologist.
Yeah.
That was my first choice, which I still think I'll be very great at. But, and I will do it. I will do it on the year I turn 50. That's going to be my thing. Climb Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
And start studying clinical psychology. So
the clock is ticking. It's all promised here on reality radio.
And then I was going to go and study out of Verulam, out of KZN. And I remember my dad, and at that time there were a couple of things happening at RES. We heard about students being raped and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I remember my dad saying, no, you can't study away. He wasn't happy. I mean, as a parent would, right?
Yeah.
So don't ask me how or where or how the application was filled out for journalism at Natal Tech, as it was known back in the day. Found myself there, filled it in, and the rest was history.
Oh.
And my parents tell me now that they remember me as a kid.
Yeah.
I would cut out articles from the Daily News, and I would read them in front of a mirror.
Wow.
And even when when we used to sit on the mat in the class and deliver Daily News, you had to tell your story.
Yeah.
I always had a story, even if I was making it up. I don't know if those teachers will be listening. I made up a lot of stuff. I made up train crashes. And the teacher would go, I remember her name was Mrs. V. Reddy. She said, how is it that Uveka always has new daily news and the rest of you don't have? And I'm like, because I'm making it up. But, it was compelling.
That's brilliant.
Fake it till you make it,
love
right,
that.
Jack?
I can imagine you sitting there as a grade 1 or grade 2 student.
Yes, in my...
holding a ruler in your hand, pretending for that to be your mic. And talking about some tragedy or the other.
So that is a long story, cut short. But that's basically, as far as I remember, I think the nuances were always there.
Yeah.
I did speech and drama at a young age because I had a big mouth, and then did drama, and the rest just happened. It happened. Organically happened.
I remember kids who were known for their shyness also going into drama because somehow their parents thought that if you learn how to speak, you're going to be a little bit more outspoken and assertive and confident.
Yeah.
Do you remember some of that in your school as well?
I was always on the debating team. I was always the one who was giving speeches, not because I volunteered. I was chosen to do it.
Always, yes.
But I'll tell you something very interesting. People who went to high school with me would tell you this. They thought I was a snob. I was actually shy.
Oh.
I was actually very shy.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, I don't like being the center of attention. I know that's very hard to believe. Considering what I've done for a living.
Yeah.
I don't like being the center of attention. Don't ever throw me a surprise party, except when I turn 50 next year. Don't throw me a surprise party.
No, that's not going to be a surprise at all when you're 50.
Yeah, when I'm 50. Yeah, that might actually be a bit of a dangerous situation when you're 50, because you never know if you're going to see 51 after that day. Keel over and pass out. But so people thought, and you spoke about shyness, is that I was thought of as a snob, but I was shy.
There is a thing though, because I suspect people often mistake shyness with a lack of confidence.
Yeah.
That is not the same thing.
No.
You can be unwilling to engage with people. You might be considered to be shy, but you could have supreme self-confidence and just not have the need to express it.
Yes. Unless called upon to do so.
Absolutely.
Yes. Or paid to do so.
People don't know how to understand that, I think.
Yeah. And look, how much did we know? And I just did a very interesting interview about EQ today for my new show, EQ. And I mean, how much did we know about EQ back in the day, about emotional intelligence, right, as opposed to IQ? We placed a lot of emphasis on IQ. We never stopped to think about personalities and people. We didn't give it much thought. We just went with, moving on and getting A's and getting degrees and whatever it was. We never gave much thought to exactly who people were and personalities and different personalities.
And how people deserve to be respected, however they present
and
themselves.
And
accepted.
Yes, for who they are.
Don't you also find, and I know using, there is a Verulam Durban Indian reference that we kind of using here. But don't you also find that even now when we talk about things like anxiety and depression, a lot of the more conservative people will refer to this, or their idea of managing these conditions would be to say, just snap out of it.
Or they'll take you to the temple and whack you with the feathers.
Right.
Sorry. I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with it, but we are ashamed to admit that somebody in our family might be depressed or have a mental health issue. And I'm very passionate about that. When I moved on from news, I moved into health, wellness, medical stuff.
Yes,
and that's why, because I wanted my experience and whatever, where my path led me to help people. I wanted my job and the platform I'd created for myself to actually be of use to someone. We can all regurgitate news and read an autocue, right?
I think that's a whole world that I'd like to cover in the things that you were exposed to, and the things that interested you, once you had started your journey in journalism. But I also wanted to pick up on some of the things that I read about your life as a journalist.
Where did you read that? Depends where you read it. What's your source?
It was a tabloid magazine.
Oh dear, okay.
Where there were crazy pictures and all kinds of. It was.
Right.
No, but one of those things that stood out for me was you reporting from Baghdad, and it was the Iraq War. This was, what was it? Desert Storm.
It was what was it? 2003. Yeah, it was
2003.
It was just after they had called off, and I had gone with Gift of the Givers, but things were still very tense.
I can imagine. Yes.
Yeah. things were still very, very tense. They just called off the sort of, what do you call it? The armed,
the offensive.
The offensive, yes.
Yeah.
But it was now gift of the givers and stuff being allowed to go in and take, food and supplies and medical staff and all of that.
So was this a really exciting assignment for you?
It was a bit of a surprise.
Really?
There's also a very funny backstory to that one. Okay, I'm going to have to leave out the swear words that came out with that, okay?
Thank you for that.
So what happened was, it was in 2003. It was a public holiday, and we were working, and I was working at 702 here in Joburg.
Yeah.
And I'd gone in, and I had... it was a public holiday, so you're like, oh, do I really have to work now? Everybody else is off, and you're like 3 people in the office. And I had prepared an entire news bulletin, and I was sitting in a booth outside of where I think it was David O'Sullivan was on 702, and we had our separate news booth, and there was Sky News running on the thing, and no sound, so all you could read was the crawlers.
Yeah.
And he had decided at that point to call off the whole offensive.
The ground offensive.
The ground offensive. And I'd prepared something, but we didn't know that was coming at that point. So I basically ad-libbed that entire thing reading. I made up a bulletin.
What?
Which any news anchor will tell you is their worst nightmare. They dream about going there and all their pages are blank. Or that they're in the basement and the news jingle has gone and they're not there. We all have those dreams. It's a thing.
That's the journalist equivalent.
I see, whatever it was. And the day we were leaving Iraq, leaving Baghdad, I didn't see him. He wasn't there, and my heart stopped. And then as I got into the minibus, and as we drove, there was a pillar, and he was there, and he turned around, and I looked out the window, and the tears were streaming down his face.
He'd lost a friend.
And that for me, and I know my friends on many tequila-filled nights hear that story over and over again, and they'd be like, Uvi, you need to do things with kids. You need to and I subsequently ended up doing a lot of charity work with kids because of that boy. And I hope he's alive today somewhere.
I was going to ask, because he must still live in your memory.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that. So from a professional point of view, do you think that actually serving that time in Baghdad gave you serious credibility as well as a journalist of note?
I hope it did. I hope it did, because for me, on a personal level, and also, we do stories. I mean, I'd been out with cops. I'd been out on, them doing patrols, looking for sex workers, their pimps in Durban. I'd been doing all kinds of stories, but being thrown into something like that as a girl who'd just come from Verulam, what I mean? And it taught me so much about myself and what I didn't think I was capable of, but I was.
And you see, it feels unfair asking this question because, you are a well-renowned, journalist. But I do want to ask, given the story that you just related about your background, what did your parents say when you told them you're going to Iraq?
I don't know if I did tell them. There might have been a phone call. There might have been some worry.
Well, you know what? We're going to pick it up. We're going to take a short break. We're coming back after this. We are in conversation with Uveka Rangappa. This is Reality Radio on 919.
They say nothing ever lasts. But what about the Fast and Furious franchise? Or showing Anaconda 2 for Friday Action Night? Or how Brooke is still forgiving Ridge Forrester like 50 seasons in? And then there's Burger King's Whopper Meal deal, which is still going strong. So get your hands on 2 flame-grilled Whoppers topped with the freshest ingredients, plus 2 portions of crispy golden fries and 2 bottomless drinks for only 130 Rand. Only at Burger King, where good things do last.
We all love a good story. Stories of love and life. Stories that entertain and inspire. And the best stories are the ones that happen to be true. Every Friday night, Jack Devnarain is live in conversation with an iconic South African personality who shares the true stories that shape their remarkable lives. Join us for Reality Radio, as real as it gets. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday night, only on 919.
And we're back. It's Reality Radio this Friday night with me, Jack Devnarain, and Uveka Rangappa, our special guest in studio. Your journey as a journalist has given you exposure to so many things. And I think it's just how you engage, not just with the subject matter you cover, but also how you engage with the world. And I know that certain issues are closer to your heart than other things, like you got health and wellness, you've got women's rights, you've got relationships, children, those issues, talking about this little boy from Iraq that stays in your mind. What is it that you love to cover using the platform that you created for yourself as a journalist? What do you want to change in the world?
I want to change the way people think they should live their lives. I want to lift the cloud, the negativity.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't take it away. It's always there, and a balance is good. You always have to know the bad to know the good, right? You have to have been through the bad to appreciate the good.
You have to know the bad.
But and I think we all grow, and we all go through certain things in our lives, and some of us talk about it, and some of us don't. And those of us who are willing to harness that pain or whatever it is that comes with it, and use it, and we are evolved enough to know why it's happened to us and what we can use it for. And when you start to use that to empower other people and to lift the blinders off for them, or to say, you're not the only one, me too, or him too, or he too, she too, they're men, women, everybody. When you can do, and people like us, you and I, who have the platform, we can use it so powerfully, just for the simplest thing of just giving somebody else hope, and just showing them that it doesn't have to end here, that there is life after this for everyone. And I'm not saying everyone has to go through something bad. There are some people who just have that energy, and they can just make you feel wonderful just by meeting them, and they don't have to say a word. So when you can make somebody leave, like if I leave this room today making you feel good about yourself, I consider that a job done.
Yeah.
Whether it took me creating this platform, doing news for so many years, so that when I speak about medical stuff, people know that it is true, because I'm not going to tell you something that I wouldn't believe myself. Or I'm not going to make you try something, whether it's an alternative form of healing or whatever it is, if I haven't tried it for myself and I know that it works. So some of us are given that gift of knowledge and experience, good or bad, and how we use it is very important. And my journey's only just begun, Jack.
Yeah.
How I use that, and how I use the knowledge and the things that come my way to make other people who may not have those resources or may not be as open-minded to open their minds to those things, whatever it might be.
So the last 20, 30 years as a journalist, as a serious professional in the news industry, in the media industry, has prepared you then for this?
I believe that. I believe the 25, 26 years of news. I mean, I started working in journalism in 1996. I started at Capital Radio on the beach for free. Remember
amazing.
Capital Radio on the
Yes,
beach?
I
Started
do.
3 months there for free, and then moved on to the SABC.
Yeah.
I don't think news was my absolute purpose. I think news was paving the way for the work I have yet to do. And I was born to do. And I was meant to do. And see, I may not be a doctor, but I'm a TV doctor.
Yes,
I bring
you are.
doctors' message. I bring medical advice to you in that way. I think that's better.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, because as a professional actor, I've played a doctor 11 times in my career.
Really?
So I believe I am eminently qualified.
You are.
If I was going to dispense advice, Dr. Jack is here to help you guys. So please, I'm practicing, actor, doctor, same thing really. So I'm here to help. But I understand what you're saying is that there's so many taboos also when we talk about medical matters. People are afraid to reveal something that they feel might bring them shame. But isn't this the kind of stuff that we should be talking about, especially when it comes to mental health issues?
Absolutely. Mental health. And I think, it's been there since time immemorial. If you think back, and now we know so much about, say, bipolar, for example,
Right.
or multiple personality disorder, or social anxiety. If we think back to 20, 30 years ago, you can possibly identify some uncle or auntie or cousin who was possibly bipolar at the time.
Yeah.
And we just thought that they were crazy.
Yeah.
Or we would call them mental.
Faulty.
Or shouting. They were that's what we would say.
That's right,
You were
we would
shouting,
say.
So we would identify and go, and obviously those things, when people didn't understand who they were or what they were going through, there was maybe substance abuse, there was alcohol, and then we easily just pegged them as an alcoholic, or we pegged them as somebody who was just a drug addict or whatever it was. And if you look back, you can possibly identify those people. I mean, I have a friend who doesn't live here anymore. And her dad and her mum were going through horrible times when we went primary school. She ended up living with us a lot of the time. And her dad came waving a gun at my house one day.
Oh, no.
And it was, I mean, he was awful to his family. Awful. Very successful businessman, but awful to, you know. And last year when we spoke, and she's in London now, and she says to me, UV, we recently found out that my dad is bipolar. And imagine if we had found this out 20 or 30 years ago, and we would have been able to treat him, my family might still be together. And, you know, this would, we wouldn't have, we wasted so many years. But what do? Now we can talk about it. And I think we should talk about it. And there's no shame in it, because there is treatment and there are solutions to everything. There may not be a cure, but there's a way to live your best life possible despite it.
I also find that, and you know, again, coming from those childhood years in the beautiful area of the world that we grew up in, you'd remember also that because there were so many teachers around, it was almost a thing that it was synonymous with alcoholism.
It was stress, man.
Was it that though? Because I cannot tell you the number of teachers that I knew living and working in those areas, and they would be drinking heavily. And I couldn't work it out. I thought, just remind me not to become a teacher.
As if that made any difference to us, Jack. But anyway, yes. But you're right. But I think, I don't know if we can, look, I think a lot of our parents became teachers because they were able to reach that. But let's go back to historically, if we look back at our grandfathers and our great-grandfathers, and let's look at what they had to deal with. Let's look at the demons they had to face in those days. So in a way, yes, you are right that teachers, we would relate alcohol, and you know, alcohol was a big part of their coping mechanism probably. But let's look historically at where it would have come from. It may not necessarily be teachers, but just the fact of the odds they were up against at the time.
No, absolutely. You know, and it wasn't perhaps it was a correlative. There's a correlation between people, you know, working in the education system and drinking heavily, because more importantly, there were communities that almost had established a rite of passage that included the abuse of alcohol, which is the more important point to make. For me, though, it's the real question is around, going back to the point you made earlier, if only we knew then that this person had a condition that needed to be treated. In the same way, I suggest that when we look at people who are dealing with alcoholism, with addiction, we very quickly went into went to interpret and judge their behavior as, this person is a write-off. They're not worth our time. They're a dangerous influence.
They're just a hooligan.
I don't want my family anywhere close to them. Are we working towards changing those associations and understanding the underlying issues that lead to the addiction?
You know, I think I'll say our generation. I think we are good with that. Convincing those that came before us is the problem. It's a one-track mind. There's a mindset. It's too much to unpack. It's too much work. Not that they're afraid of hard work. Our parents and those that came before them were the hardest workers. They worked very hard. For us, we have a lot more access to information now. That makes all the difference, and a lot more access to, we can afford the help and the care that we might need to try and fix these problems. And there's a big focus on it post-COVID. During and post, there's a big focus on it. So I think, you know, out of that disaster came the silver lining that people have been battling with for centuries and generations. And out of the COVID disaster that we had and the dark spot that it was, came the silver lining where these things started to be highlighted. There's always an upside.
Don't you find, though, in your treatment of health and wellness issues, of unpacking it now as you do, don't you find that a lot of the conditions that we are treating are not the physical conditions? These are mostly to do with the way people connect with the world. You know, issues of keeping a healthy psyche. You know, you're talking about the kind of wellness that's not just, you know, you take some meds and fix it. There is a connectedness about the different parts of a person's health system that includes the physical, but also goes into the emotional, psychological, spiritual even.
And that's where the shift is happening. From what I'm seeing in my interaction with, I've done a lot of work with various doctors in terms of podcasts and you know, other things where we tackle mental health, and even now with the new role I'm taking on. And we're going, as much as we're moving forward in the world with technology and everything and AI and all of that stuff, we seem to be going back to basics when it comes to how we're treating ourselves and mindfulness and spirituality. Back to basics. I mean, I'm going to say it there. A lot of people are now buying into the use of cannabis for pain. The CBD oils. I mean, look at all the shops that are just popping up all over the place. Selling that stuff.
Now I understand President Ramaphosa has just signed a bill that allows, you know, personal use and and I'm not sure how far the bill goes, but certainly it was.
You grow it, I think, you can have it at home for your use, but you can't sell it. And depends on what the So you know, we're going back to basics. All those things, like whether it's aromatherapy, whether it's Reiki, whether it's, you know, mushrooms, whatever, ibogaine, ayahuasca. People are doing all those journeys. They're doing them. And rather than reverting to whether they, you know, antidepressants or pharmaceuticals, a lot of people and doctors are moving away from a lot of the traditional medical ways of thinking about things into mindfulness. And a lot of my doctors that I see for conditions I have are, you know, like things like thyroid issues and autoimmune and all of that. And people I know as well are moving in that direction.
So are we losing then the taboos that used to be associated with a lot of these conditions, and we are becoming more accepting?
And people are talking about using that stuff. They are, and passing along numbers and saying, this is the person that you can get the stuff from and get that stuff. And, you know, people are taking things that come from the ocean and, you know, all of that, this seaweed stuff. And I don't know, there's a whole lot of things. Sea moss is the big thing now, But apparently, we're going back to nature. We're going back to nature's apothecary. Let's put it that way.
When we were growing up, there was no such thing as a doctor of integrated medicine.
Yes. I mean, that's a big title.
That is a big title, yes. Yes. But now we have those, right?
Yeah.
And I'm never always quite sure what are the parts that are being integrated. I suppose it will mean having somebody sitting here in this chair explaining that to me. But from your understanding, what are those integrated parts, and how do they come to bear in a person for their healing?
I think it's the holistic approach to your body.
Right.
Your mind-body connection is very important. We underestimate that because we're on this hamster wheel all the time.
Yeah.
We're just doing it. I mean, those of us who have, you know, homes and kids and families, it's basically provide. That's what we're doing all the time. We don't stop to think. I mean, does your mind ever quiet? Do you ever have a quiet moment?
I'm having a conversation with my mind right now. You know what my mind is saying right now?
You need a break.
It says we're taking a break. We're taking a short break. It's Reality Radio. We're coming back to more talks about Uveka and her journey through this amazing life of hers.
Reality Radio, as real as it gets. So you want to be a good Joburger? Well, now it's easier than ever. Get down to any Burger King in Johannesburg and order your favorite meal. Take a picture of your till slip and WhatsApp it off to 065 503 0439. And we could be calling you back to win the entire value of your meal in vouchers. Then we give you the opportunity to be a good Joburger and select a charity of your choice, and we'll be sending them some burgers as well, all on your behalf. Only with Burger King and 919 FM. We all love a good story. Stories of love and life. Stories that entertain and inspire. And the best stories are the ones that happen to be true. Every Friday night, Jack Devnarain is live in conversation with an iconic South African personality who shares the true stories that shape their remarkable lives. Join us for Reality Radio, as real as it gets. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday night, only on 919.
Reality Radio on a Friday night on 919 with me, Jack Devnarain, tonight with Uveka Rangappa, live in studio. Health, wellness, and all these magical things that you tackle, but don't you miss politics even a little?
Hell no. A lot of them could do with some of that stuff we were talking about before we went to break.
Could they?
They could. I mean, if they just chilled a little bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I don't miss politics, Jack, because it is, okay, I can't use the word I want to use, but it's a mess.
Yeah.
It's a mess. It's smoke and mirrors. There's, if you had a politician in this chair, how much PR jargon would you have gone? How much press release speak would you have wasted in the past 45 minutes?
We have never had a politician in this chair
and
for the
let's keep
same
it that way,
reason.
please. Yeah, keep it that way. I said, when I left news, I said, I would rather eat my arm than interview another politician about politics. I can interview them about anything else.
Yeah.
Maybe they, I don't know, ayahuasca journey or something. And, I must say at this point, I'm sure many people are out there going, she sounds like she's completely cooked in the head or, up with the fairies.
No,
but guys,
I hear you. Rather that,
it's
because, one of our hashtags on reality radio is real people, real stories. Yeah. Just be honest, because there's nothing to lose. And I feel the same about how people try to sway their voters. And I listen to this absolute garbage, and I think you cannot imagine that I'm that stupid. Yeah. One of the things that I want to get your comment on this. The former Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Zizi Kodwa,
yes.
He's appointed by President Ramaphosa in March of 2023. This is just 15 months ago. The allegations that he's mired in now about this 1.6 million rand bribe scandal, this was alleged to have happened between 2015 and 2017. The evidence that was revealed came to light in the Zondo Commission in 2021. Yeah. And yet he was appointed in 2023. This, to me, is an indication that even the president himself knew exactly what he was doing, giving a minister a free ride to build up his pension for a year, knowing that this was coming, and they were likely that the ANC was likely to lose its parliamentary majority come the national election. So this is where we are. We see this minister has now resigned. I know that there was an appointment of an acting minister today, but I just feel so absolutely disappointed that in one of the most dynamic industries in the country that has never received the kind of accolades and recognition that it deserves, that we were appointed a minister who was intended to be a failure.
Well, Jack, look at the surprise on my face. That's all I can say. And you know what? Nothing against Zizi Kodwa. I've had many interactions with him.
Okay.
He was actually a hell of a nice guy, when in the times that we interacted, even defending me in our infamous interview with Colin Maine back in the previous election, coming to apologize to me for the then Youth League leaders' behavior during an interview. So I can't say that I'd ever had a bad experience, but none of it surprises me, because what did our friend Batabile Dlamini say? Smolanyana skeletons.
Yes.
They all have them. They all have people glass houses. And I'm going to say all the way to the top. Nothing surprises me. That is why politics doesn't interest me. Yeah. It doesn't interest me because it's not even reality. It's not reality. There's nothing about them that's real. There is nothing that is real. It's self-serving. Yeah. I just say we just have a king. Can we just have a king and a kingdom?
You want to elect a king, right?
We could just have a king.
That would be a clash of two regimes, a monarchy and a constitutional democracy all mangled into one.
Yeah, no, politics, I have no respect. Sorry. Yeah. I haven't, because I'm going to say, I have no respect whatsoever.
Did that come across in any of the interviews that you did?
You might have seen my irritation now and then. You might have.
Excellent.
Because I know I can sit there and I can do all the research I want. Yeah. And I can try and sound as smart as I want. But they glaze around. And you've got 3 to 5 minutes to get something out of these guys? Yeah. They know how to glaze. They know how to just dance around you. And then you're done. And you're like, oh, well, I knew it.
Yeah, and that really meant nothing. Yeah. So obfuscation, right? 101. And yet it's required of a politician, surely. Yeah. But you just don't feel as if you're getting anything valuable out of them.
You know it's BS.
Right.
You see through it. but you actually don't have the time.
You got to play the
You
game.
don't get enough time on air, to
Yeah.
actually, and then you just realize you're wasting your time. So,
Best politician interview?
who would that be?
Because
Can't think
you've
of one.
interviewed ambassadors and
Did
heads of state.
Well, I wouldn't say best, but most memorable.
Memorable, yeah. Let's
was
go with
during
it.
one election. Well, it's not even for the content. It was for what happened when during the break.
I love it.
I was pregnant,
Yeah.
and it was an election, and former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo was here
Yeah.
as an election observer. And at ENCA, we had this platform in the studio, and we were sitting up there, and I was interviewing him and somebody else, I can't remember who it was, about them and their role as election observers and all of that. And as I stepped off, I fell. I fell, and I fell off the little platform.
Yeah.
And there was a former president coming to pick me up.
Yeah.
I mean, and he rushed without even he rushed, and he came
That's
and
amazing.
grabbed me up off the floor. So for me, that was a memory. I can't remember any conversation that stuck out in my mind. Look,
That's
the Colin
beautiful,
Maine
though.
thing was it was it was entertaining,
Mm.
but and in some ways my favorite for just that he made himself look like a complete. What's the other word for it?
I get it. I get it.
Yes,
But I
even
think,
to the shame of his own party.
did you? But at a certain point in that Colin Maina interview, you would have felt that I've so got this guy. I'm going to play him.
Oh no, I was having fun at some point.
And
and
really,
I
you're doing
remember
that.
my TV husband Dan Moyane just looking there, going like, "WTF?" Like,
Yes,
like,
yes.
What the?
You're going there, aren't you?
It's going to happen before 7. I'm going to drop a bomb, an F bomb. It's going to happen. We have fun and games, and then you just you get to that point where you shake it off and you move on, and it's
Of
okay.
course.
But I can't. There's not been an interview that I can say that that was like a great person. Who I always enjoyed interviewing, I must say, was Bantu Holomisa. I just found him.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You talking real people and real stories.
Yeah.
And I hope to God that there's never a day we find out anything that, but I always enjoyed talking to him and getting his opinion on things and getting his view, I did enjoy speaking to him. I just felt, that there was the humility that came, the honesty to a point.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not proven wrong at some point in like 15 months
And
from
we
now.
always, when we talk about politicians, we always seem to add that as a little proviso, just so that we're not completely fooled by an act as well.
I might have been, probably many times.
Yeah.
Could have been. I can live with that. It's
So-
okay. It's not my legacy. It's theirs.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
don't think that they care either way.
No.
Were you able to call the result of the national elections
This year.
this year?
Oh, I knew it was going to be horrific for the ANC.
You knew it.
I
huh?
knew that.
Yeah.
And it's going to get worse as the years go on. I don't know
Yeah.
in our lifetime
Mm.
if we are going to see that, there's a different party in power.
Yeah.
Or maybe close. Maybe we'll be senile by that point and go like, who won the election? I mean, like,
Yes.
although we'll be able to skip the queue because we'll be so old, right?
Yeah.
But there will come a point that it is going to go completely fall apart. It is falling apart right before us now, right?
It is, yeah. Do you think that are you sensing some contrition on the part of the ANC now, appreciating their culpability in bringing about this loss of their voting support?
Look, I heard and I read a couple of things, but I think the ego and the arrogance they're still there.
Yeah.
And you say things at a time. You say what you think the people want to hear. You try and make yourself sound like you've been humbled by all of this.
Yes.
I am of that. I'm still there. I'm suspicious. Call me skeptical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I really don't. Seeing is believing. Let's
Sure.
put it that way. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, because I certainly, from the people that I speak to, there is a sense of we needed to teach them a lesson, and we have.
Yeah.
I don't think people are satisfied though, because at the end of the day, you're still coming down to what does this mean to people living their lives? Will more jobs become available? Will we have a stable economy? Will we see economic growth? Service delivery, can we resolve some of those issues? Those are the big questions, quite apart from, have we taught them a lesson enough?
No. And remember, whether they're in power or not, when they go home, they've got enough to keep them going.
Oh, and
If
the
they're not
generators
ministers
and whatever.
anymore and presidents anymore,
Yeah.
if that is taken out of their hands, they will survive.
Yeah.
The rest are
Yeah.
not. The people that who got the T-shirts and the food parcels in
Yeah.
deepest rural KZN, nothing's going to change for them. It's going to get worse.
Yeah, I realize that's true. Have you imagined what your life would be like? As you were saying, we are, 20 years, okay, maybe 25, 30 years hence, and you're trying to imagine what your life would be like. What would you be doing then?
20 years from now.
Yeah.
Partying on in my 70s, man, Jack. What do you mean?
Love it.
Just partying on and living life.
Yeah. And what do you hope for your kids?
For my kids, peace, love, happiness, joy, success.
Yeah.
And that they would be proud of their mum. And when they remember me or speak of me, if I'm not here anymore, to their children, or if they choose to have them, if they don't, that's fine. Whoever, to say, this was my mum and look what she did.
Are you proud of you?
I'm starting to be. For
Yeah.
the longest time I wasn't, but I think because I'm doing what I love and I'm loving what I do. I mean, I was just an ordinary voter this year. That's what I was, and I loved it. I didn't have people, my colleagues in the newsrooms go, aren't you having FOMO? I'm like, no.
No.
No. So,
yeah.
and I am starting to be proud of myself.
I
I'm
wonder-
starting to be proud of who I was. I didn't realize all the things I had to be proud of.
Yeah.
Now I can pat myself on the back and say, good girl, you have survived and done and come through so much.
Yeah.
And look at
That's
who you are.
It's an incredible place of empowerment, just having that feeling.
Yeah.
I don't
and it's
know-
not ego.
No,
It's
it
acceptance
isn't.
of who I am. Yeah.
I realize that because, and I can say to you also that sense also occurred to me around about the same time in my life.
Mm.
It was just before I hit my 50s. I wonder, and we have so many friends who are younger than us,
Yeah.
and we want to give them that gift, to say, you have no idea how special you are.
Yeah.
You have no idea how incredible the lessons that you have learned to get to this point. Now you're 30 something. This is going to keep you steady, and this is going to keep feeding your life for the next 30 years. You so want them to appreciate what they've lived through, and many people at that age don't really feel that way.
Very gung-ho at this point. Look, some
Yeah.
are very deep. I know some young people, like my producer at BGTN,
Yes,
Nash,
yes.
who's here with me today. She's a human encyclopedia. She's wise beyond her years.
Yeah.
She has stories for days. Many young people, let's not put a blanket on it. They have incredible stories. They're incredible minds. A lot of older people can learn a lot from younger people.
Yeah.
But I would say don't throw it away. Appreciate everything that you are going through. Go through it.
Yes.
Go
Live
through it. Don't go over it. Don't go under it or around it. Go through. Don't be afraid to go through it.
Yeah. Because that's where the real value
That
is.
is when 20 years from then, if you had to ask them 20 years, they will look back and appreciate those gems that came through, however hard the experiences are, however bad the things are that happened to you. There's a reason those things happened.
Often it's because we are running from fear.
Yeah.
Often, we'll find a way around it because we are afraid to confront something in our lives.
Face it.
Yeah, and
Face it.
that's your.
Smack it in the face.
I love it.
Smack it.
Was there anything that you were afraid of? Anything that you fear now?
No.
Yeah,
There was a time I was afraid that I wasn't good enough.
yeah.
And now I'm the bee's knees, Jack.
She is the bee's knees. She is, because she is Uveka Rangappa, and it's been amazing having you on the
Thank
show.
you.
Thank you so much for joining me.
And did they tell you now you have a face for radio?
No, but I was told that when I started my TV career. So I believe them. But this is Reality Radio, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Join us again next Friday night from 6 to 7 p.m. for more real people and real stories. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend.